Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this B2B session on empowering startups to scale and grow with industry leaders. We are very happy that we were provided with the opportunity to set up this session. That is H2 Hub, and you might wonder who is H2 Hub. The first thing is H2 Hub is the leading European open innovation platform for hydrogen startups and the hydrogen innovation ecosystem. We've been established 4 years ago in Germany and covering the whole of Europe and dealing with startups from all parts of Europe in order to bring them together, to connect them to industries, to support them with programs. I will come back to that later. So we are catering the innovation ecosystem. Our startups is by connecting startups with industry and, of course, investors and politics to leverage industrial solutions and deployment. So our initiative is not just about the next innovation that might be interesting, but it's about how to integrate innovation into the ramp up of the hydrogen market and how to bring startups in a position that they can work together with other partners in the industry to take part in this ramping up of the market. We have different formats that we've established in the last 4 years. The first format was, of course, to set up our own acceleration program. We have many networking formats. We have been present for the first Hydrogen Week in Brussels here with a startup booth. And we have community events. We have our own convention, Hydroverse Convention in Essen, Germany, every June. Roughly 600 people from Europe and other parts of the world, from Asia and the Americas, are joining us to talk about innovation and how to bring innovation to deployment and to the markets. Our network consists not only of startups. Maybe you know that in Europe we count roughly, how are we now? Like, let's say we count not more than 500 hydrogen startups, and this is a very small number compared to other startup ecosystems, and this was one of the reasons why we are covering Europe with our initiative and not only Germany or any European state. So we're dealing with all the startups. Actively, we're working with roughly 200 startups, and we have had 80 startups in our ecosystem in our acceleration program. But as I said, it's not only about the startups. We are also working with leading industry partners in the hydrogen economy, and we are also working with science throughout Europe, and we are trying to bring our positions to be recognized by politics and policies as well. So it's an ecosystem. It's not just a startup hub. We started with this idea, let's build a startup hub, but now it's really an open innovation platform, and this is what we are doing. Right. And me and my colleague Christoph will moderate these sessions, and we'll introduce partners one by one when it's time to do so. And I'd like to hand over to Christoph for the next remarks.
Sure, getting just the clicker, and then it works perfect. Yeah, also a very warm welcome from my side. I'm Christoph. I'm heading the Innovation and Startups unit at H2 Up for roughly 3 months, having a larger background in energy industry for quite some years. And for us, as Uwe already said, I mean, the importance of startups these days, especially in the hydrogen sector, is more critical than ever, as we like to say. So first of all, they are very keen to drive innovation these days, so bring new technologies, be it, but also software, business models to market, which most of the corporations these days dare to touch, and in a speed most of the corporations never ever will have. This leads to the second point. While startups bring speed and agility, also can respond very flexible. I mean, we all know that, to the market, to new regulations and whatever comes in their way. So that's also one of the important points to keep in mind. But also complementary, as we will see today with the case studies and the examples we brought along later that day, also being complement to the industry. So working together on solutions, on technologies, whatever it can be, to bring that to life, to scale that up, whatever it can be. And last but not least, also we would like to say it's some kind of catalyst for the ecosystem. So attract talents, capital, venture capital mostly, but also drive networking and accelerating the market development, especially in the hydrogen sector these days.
Right. And the question at the moment is, where do we stand? Not only with startups or innovation, but with the hydrogen ecosystem. And we've heard it a lot yesterday and today, and you all know it, the so-called hype is over. We were established when the hype was at its peak. In the end of 21, everything was possible with hydrogen. The hydrogen was the solution for so many things. You got a lot of attention when you said, well, we are dealing with hydrogen, but now we are at a different point. The hype is over and like reality begins. I liked, maybe you've heard it this morning in the main session, the tourists are gone, and you can see now the experts stay in the room while the tourists have left since the hype is over. But anyway, this is where we stand, and we as H2 Hub have made the experience in a lot of talks with startups and corporates that hydrogen is definitely no longer a technological or technical problem, but it has a market problem. So it's not the question, does it work? The question is, how can we make it work and what's necessary to make it work? So it's not a question of, is hydrogen a technology that will be a future technology? It will be, and we need it. So it's a market problem. When it comes to market, then it comes, of course, to financing. And the second question could be, is there enough money? And we believe there is enough money, but there is a lack of confidence. And the lack of confidence is really empowered or fostered by the lack of insecurity that politics and policies are bringing to this sector. You never know, will some regulations, delegated acts or whatever, will it be changed or not? The German government, for example, they have a very strong point in it needs to be changed. And while this political insecurity is around, of course, the confidence or the lack of confidence of investors and financiers is no wonder. And the third point is innovation in the field of hydrogen must shift from moonshots to meaningful benchmarks. What does that mean? When we started with our programs, with our acceleration, of course there was this curiosity, what kind of new technology could be fancy? What kind of new invention? What kind of increase in efficiency and whatever, like all the things we've seen were interesting. And now we are facing a phase where when it comes to deployment, we of course need projects, we need companies that are ready to deploy. So it's not about fancy ideas of what would be possible in a future that lies ahead, but what can be addressed now so that it can make an impact in ramping up the hydrogen market. So we need meaningful benchmarks. And this leads to two hypotheses we have formulated. One is we bring the right industry players to the table, and that on a level playing field or kind of level playing field, because H2 Hub always stood for no fancy pitches in a coffee break. Maybe you've attended a lot of conferences and it's really, really nice to have a coffee break or a speaker's corner, and then startups are about to pitch, and this is like a decorating element of many hydrogen conferences. We always said no to that. Either we are on a stage or we are not. So you see, we're on a stage. And this is very important, not to deal with startups as the little ones, but as the promising ones. And the second is, we know that the money is there, but we need proof that it will be invested securely. And of course, we need success stories. And this is what we are dealing with, two topics that we are trying to thrive today.
Yeah, perfect. If somebody can check the clicker in the meantime, because it's not moving forward somehow. Okay, now it should be working.
Yes.
So it looks good. Yeah, already said by my colleagues, so it's definitely not longer just about the technology. that is already there. So what's now crucial, what we see these days when working together with startups, scale-ups, and bring them also together with major corporations around Europe, it's the point about market access, first of all, but also scaling, the term of value creation, so how to create value, not doing the pilot limbo and getting around those POC stuff, so getting the real value out of it, and furthermore also reliable references in the end, not only for the startups, so also for the companies out there where we see some consequences in the market. And what Uwe has already mentioned, talking about the first hypothesis, it's the lack of market, not the lack of technology, where we come in these days, having already looked at the clicker isn't working again somehow. Yeah, I'm pressing the green button, but there we go. Sorry. Connecting them with the right corporate pioneers, as we like to call them. So you see, some of them we brought along here on this slide. So from very well-known corporations, but also some other well-known players in the hydrogen economy and many more, where we work together closely with and also focus on connecting the right dots between startups, technology, but also the corporate side. But also when it comes to the second hypothesis, so the capital waits until references build trust. So we have also brought along, it's not working again somehow, I do not know. There we go. It's also some of the landscape we are connected to, so very well-known names around Europe, but also from Germany and the DACH region. So be it a major corporation, venture arms, but also some others where we're working closely together with, so to build that gap when startups are out there. So this is also one of our services or one of our things we are doing with startups. So we call it fundraising as a service, for example. So connecting, if you're raising as a startup, looking for money, be it pre-seed, seed, whatever it can be, to connect you with the right dots as H2Up. But also, as said, looking at the other points, and Uwe mentioned that beforehand, it's our very well-known H2Up sprint. We also have some participants on the stage today who participated in the last rounds. So getting them ready, talking about the business model, how to raise money, whatever it can be, getting them ready to be ready for the market. And on the corporate side, mainly, we're also focusing on the points of market intelligence, so looking more or less into the future with some very dedicated and detailed reports on how landscapes are evolving in the hydrogen sector, of course, and what kind of startups and technologies and also venture capital plays a major role in that.
Right. So much for the base that we are working on, so much for the ecosystem that we are working with, and all these theoretical background, and it's really substantial, but in the end, it's practice that counts, in the end, it's projects that counts, in the end, it's developing the value chain, addressing the value chain at different points. So we brought two great examples of young companies, of startups that show how crucial strategic partnerships are for their development and for their next steps. It is really important to see that scaling or growing is not only achieved alone, but through a combination of innovation technology. Of course, you have to be good and strong industry partners that should lead to economic success. Because the best startups is not a good startup if they are not successful. We brought two very successful examples. These partnerships are more than cooperations. They are customer relationships, they are technology partners, and I'm really looking forward to the first round of presentations by the first startup and company.
Yeah, right. So I will keep it quite short and then handing over to Florent, Tobias afterwards from Atman and Hy2Gen. So let me very briefly, because I guess you will dive deeper into that afterwards for the next couple of minutes. But Atman is a Munich-based software startup, digitalizes and automates sustainability and RFNBO certification. And congratulations still on your last round this summer. So closing that and working towards a more, I'm missing the words right now, to accelerate the industrial decarbonization, let's put it like this. And Tobias from Hy2Gen, but afterwards over to them already, working for Hy2Gen, a global project developer for renewable hydrogen and Power-to-X, founded already 2017, a lot in the pipeline, in execution, but I guess you will talk a little more about that later, so floor is yours, and please feel free.
Good morning. My name is Fleur de Durfort. I'm CEO and co-founder of Atman. In short, keywords for this presentation, it's going to get a bit nerdy, but certification, RFNBO, traceability, market access, how to make it work. That's the goal of this presentation today, is to pause and to look back. As Atman, we fall into the category of RegTech, regulatory tech. This means we are regulatory nerds and technology nerds. We are behind 22 site certificates already in Europe. We are accumulating a lot of experience and we'd like to share a little bit. And I couldn't be more pleased than to do so with Hydrogen, who's been through it. So we'll hope to bring you some concrete learnings from on the ground, making it work for certification and traceability. Maybe let's start with a statement. Not everyone might love that, but we believe that the actual market ramp-up is when business cases realize, not when electrolyzers run at full load. And what's behind this is a strong belief of ours. And the reason why we founded this company is that certified green will distinguish winners from losers in the green molecules space. We think hydrogen is a winner. And why is that so? So why is certification actually more than a success factor? Because unless molecules are certified green, there will be no price premium business cases cannot realize. Because unless supply chains are compliant with the regulatory frameworks, these are not eligible for subsidies. And as we know, without subsidies, few projects can reach FID currently. And because unless molecules are labeled right, they don't have market access. India is the first promoter at the moment of the RFNBO rules because they want to follow these rules and they want to sell into the EU market. With that, I would hand over to Hydrogen to present a little bit the company, the case, and then we'll go through the actual learnings and what happened with Hydrogen and Atman.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tobias Janning. I'm Head of Global Business Development with Hydrogen. As Flora already mentioned, we're a Germany-based but global developer, owner, operator of renewable hydrogen production facilities. And that includes renewable hydrogen as a gas, but also ammonia, methanol, SAF, and all the other derivatives. For example, RFNBO methane, and that is the plant we can see here on the picture. I'm not only Head of Global Business Development at Hydrogen, but also Chairman of the Working Group 2 within the Certify certification scheme. So very lucky to be working with Certify, with Atman, but also, of course, with my colleagues from the respective projects in translating the rules, the Commission delegated regulations, into reality. I have to wait, I guess. Okay, who is Hydrogen? So Hydrogen is still quite a young company. We were not sure if we were the startup here or the industry leaders. I guess we're both somewhere in between. Founded in 2017 with shareholders such as, for example, Technip Energies as strong EPC partner, Trafigura, Hy24, Mirova, and CDPQ. So a strong partnership with our shareholders there. Developer, owner, operators, so not only developing the projects and then selling them at FID. Thank you. But actually also in the game of financing them and also operating them, which entails the certification process that, you know, at first sight seems overly complex. But with the help of the right partners, such as Atman, such as the certification schemes and also the certification bodies, that makes life a lot easier. And after all, even the most complex rules are manageable then. And our goal is to become one of the or the independent market leaders supplying renewable hydrogen-based feedstock, mostly into the European markets, but maybe in the end also to other markets. We have 7 megawatts in operation, which sounds like a very small number compared to what we see on most slides, but they are 7 nice megawatts in northern Germany. That's a 6 megawatt electrolyzer plus methanation unit, and that is the plant we saw on the first slide. Our project portfolio that we have in real active development, not concepts that we can imagine, but under active development where we're spending significant amounts of money today, is about 1.8 gigawatts. That is spread across Europe, North America, and Latin America. And we have subsidiaries in 6 countries at the moment. And those include Germany, France, Canada, the Nordics as one region, we have combined them, and the US and Paraguay. Floor already hinted at the value of the green premium and the value of certification, and I've put a small diagram in here to illustrate that and to support her point. What we can see at the bottom of the page is roughly an analysis of what the draft RED III implementation in Germany would translate into in terms of monetary terms. I've not shown the numbers here, the actual euros per kilogram, but just to show the ratio between what's actually the value of the physical molecule and what's the compliance value. And the compliance value is everything we can see here in yellow, and the physical molecule is everything we can see here in dark blue. So the vast majority of what we're selling depends on the appropriate certificate and the appropriate compliance value. So that means we need to integrate these rules and the certification process deeply into our business development from day one in developing the concepts for the projects that we want to build at some point. So certification in practice, you've already mentioned it. We've gone through the process for our plant in northern Germany, the 6 megawatts electrolyzer. And also there we saw each production facility, of course, is different. We have specialties for each specific project, and this one had specialties as well. There's a neighboring biogas plant with which we exchange a lot of flows in terms of products, but also energy. And that had some very specifics that we needed to deal with. And also we have the case for our plant that we have an external party trailering the hydrogen. So there we needed to figure out how do we actually manage this, who inserts which data, who has access to which data, and how can we assure that all of that data is combined and calculated in an appropriate way. Are we on time? So in terms of the plant itself, I mentioned already it's in northern Germany. The town is called Werlte. I actually grew up in that region, so for me it was especially nice to start operating this plant. It's Germany's first RFNBO certified methane producer, which was also a nice achievement for us. And the certification verifies compliance with the EU standard, and that is what unlocks that green premium that we have previously discussed. The electricity sourcing is then, of course, also compliant with the rules. We have a hydropower PPA there, which is still valid because we're before the grandfathering or before the additionality period. And the plant is quite flexible because it developed out of an unregulated market where it was a bit of a pilot plant where they trialed a lot of different routes. So we have a methanation unit, we even have a liquefaction unit to produce RFNBO LNG. We have trailer filling stations. We even have a solid oxide electrolyzer there, 2 of them. So they've really tried a lot of things in the past, but now luckily we have a stable market environment. Could be a bit more stable in some cases, but at least we have the regulation in place to enable some of the projects to move ahead. For the next year, we're planning to increase the capacity of the plant. We have a neighboring plot where we have space for a lot more than we are currently operating. But yeah, for that, we need a bit more certainty on the rules, and by rules I don't mean RFNBO rules, but more the RED 3 implementation, mostly in Germany. So that's for us really the key trigger that would unlock this sort of investment. And that's it from our side for the intro.
Thank you, Tobias. So we made it work. How did we make it work? That's the main question. And what have we learned along the way? At Atman, we think that there needs to be a better path for certification, better than digesting an own on-it checklist, better than scattered data. We think that in an ideal world, as a developer, even before your plant exists, you're already designing your whole operational supply chain for sustainability certification, because the CI will determine the price. We think that you should be confident at all times that your workflows are on top of regulatory change, and that you shouldn't be worried that the moment things change, because they will change, whether we like it or not, and schemes change every 6 months anyway, that you still can operate and that your workflows can cope with that. And also, you want ideally to not hire 5 people to do this work. This is tedious if you do it manually, so you want something which is seamlessly embedded in your industrial tech stack. And that's how we created Atman, actually. And let me say a few words about our positioning, because I think our positioning is interesting in this space. Forget about Atman for one sec. How does certification work? You need 3 types of players to work together for certifications to work. If you're hydrogen, you develop and you operate projects. You're at the top. You're a site operator. You could also be a trader. You care about marketing not only the molecules, but the certified attributes of these molecules. So you're going to go to a certification scheme, an ISCC, a certify, and you're going to sign a contract where you say, yes, I shall follow your bill of requirements, which is about 200 requirements. And then you're going to go to a trained certification body, trained by the certification scheme, a Bureau Veritas, a TÜV, and you're going to tell them, please come every 12 months and check that everything I'm doing and the way I'm labeling every single batch is actually fulfilling these 200 requirements. In a perfect world, that would be enough, and then you just follow the rules, and that's fine. The problem is there's a huge amount of friction in this triangle. Why? First, there is a huge gap between the scheme requirements and the reality of an operational supply chain. In a certification scheme audit checklist, it's written, you shall mass balance. Yes, thank you. But how do I deal with my leakage? How do I deal with my truck that does 5 deliveries 1 out of a time and comes back half empty? No one tells you that. Someone needs to be in the details, and someone needs to operationalize these rules so that it's workable with a real, very concrete supply chain which comes with their own specifics. Huge gap, which we are filling with Atman. We are the first officially recognized RFNBO compliance technology provider. This means that the schemes themselves went into our tech and checked that we actually follow at comma level the requirements. And this chain of trust is extremely important because it triggers a lot of liability questions otherwise. Then, certification bodies. How on earth is a poor auditor going to manage with at least 70,000 data points and documents when they come once per year to a physical site? Sorry, but we're talking about so much data that there are certain things that are better done by machines. Detecting outliers, has there been fraud? And we need to bring verification also a little bit to the 21st century and make it as data-driven as possible so that we can raise the bar. Because what does an auditor do without us? They sample out. They say, oh, there's so much data, I will take week 11 and week 32, and I think the rest should be okay. This is a huge risk for our sector. If there is one case of real fraud in our FNBO, we will all suffer from that. So there's a macro risk associated with it. So huge friction also on the verification side, not to mention all the gray zones which are still there. So we came in and we built the company, we founded a company 2.5 years ago with an intuition saying there is a space. There is a space and a position to be taken for a data infrastructure layer that manages all of this data, makes sure that everyone accesses what they need, when they need it, that we de-risk the topic, and that we have an interrupted chain of trust around the attributes of what's on the market. And this is what we are. So we built Atman to be this first sustainability certification infrastructure layer. We started with our FNBO for a specific reason, because our FNBO is a lot of friction, a lot of complexity, it's new, there was no one there, and this is how we position ourselves as this layer of tech on top of supply chains that takes care about continuously labeling the molecules and attaching them with their molecules. Our vision is that products continuously go to market and go from hand to hand, not only as products, as physical products, but also with their associated data set of attributes of these products. How does it work? This is where it gets a little nerdy, but I'll try to go fast in there. So imagine we have How2Gen now. They have an e-methane running side, operational side. You read this logic stack from the bottom. So you have a producer environment. As a producer environment, you have inputs and outputs, that's clear, but you also have an IT and an OT layer. You will typically have a SCADA system, you will typically have an EMS sometimes that manages that. So when you start working with a partner like How2Gen, we start by asking, okay, which label do you want? What's your sustainability target? Is it just RFNBO or is it max 15 grams of CO2 equivalent per megajoule? We enter these constraints and we deploy our technology. What are we? We are a cloud-based platform with pre-built data pipelines, which means we know exactly which data we need to get, in which volume, which frequency, which quality. And we come with these very precise requirements, and we finish building the data pipelines with the customer so that then seamlessly the data is going to flow and being pushed to our platform. We also enter the specifics of a supply chain. There are always specifics, how heat is managed, how transportation is managed, and we define the right trigger events. Okay, we're set, we're deployed. I'll come back to it. This takes about 2 to 4 weeks on average to deploy. From there, we do a bunch of things. We ingest the data continuously, we normalize this data, and then we confront this data with external logics. We have turned regulation into code. If you take from the grid, then you take one of 3 methodologies. In your case, methodology is better, therefore we take this emission factor, which is in the Q&A of this page, right? So we go very far in these logics, and then we do 3 things. We quantify the sustainability attributes per batch. There can be dozens of batch per month, sometimes per day. Then we trace all these attributes based on where they are in the supply chain. And on top you have the certification layer, which is where we manage the interactions with the rest of the world. We issue the proof of sustainability in one click. We interact with the registries, electricity and gas, and we interact with the CBs as well, with the certification bodies. So the auditors is going to come and will perform the audit directly in the platform. In short, the product is about automating attributes tracking. It's about managing a portfolio of certificates in the most efficient way possible. And it's about fast tracking through your audit so that you're ready at all times and you can dialogue in the most efficient possible way with the verifier. With How2Gen, how did it look like? We had a kickoff. We worked on the data pipeline onboarding. We train, actually we play a very important role in training the teams, making sure that they know how to mass balance, how not to make mistakes. We accompany via a pre-audit, then the self-audit, and then we actually participate in the actual audits. This is actually very rich. What does it mean? It means that for all the certificates for which we've been behind so far, we are in the audits. We hear each time how an auditor judges on whether a gray zone is actually cleared or not, which means that we're there to say, guys, sorry, but your friend from TÜV Northern ETD said something different. So you guys agree, we implement one thing. We raise the bar. Harmonious application of the rules. So milestone number 1 is always the site audit. Milestone number 2 is always the first mass balance close, which means actually issuing the certificates. That's what happened. I think in short, put here some quotes. We did a retro with Tobias' colleagues who said some nice things. I think in short, what we are happy about and proud about is really turning regulatory requirements and their complexity into operations, working workflows. Transforming a lot of data into audit-ready documentation, automating this reconciliation and making sure that as much friction as possible can be removed. And by doing so, de-risking the topic and de-risking the market access and de-risking the business cases. In the end, if we don't prove with the first RFNBO sites that business cases realize, we won't go very far. And we think this type of collaborations, in this case with Hydrogen, Certify, and us, is just a great example of what happens when visions align. And when a bunch of people say, hey, we are an ecosystem, we're working towards the same goals, so let's make it happen. Yeah, and so very happy and proud about what we've achieved in a small amount of time. And yeah, maybe as a last statement, I think through this presentation, hopefully you've also seen that certification, you're also convinced that certification is not only a list of checkboxes, it's not just a hygiene factor, it's not just something that you do once everything is done and you invite an auditor to put a stamp on it all. It's crucial, it should be embedded in the day-to-day operations of a site. It should be embedded in the business development even, so prior to supply chains existing. And for this needs to be done very well with the right partners. Yeah, we hope we're a good example of that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So now moving over to another example from Turn2X and Siemens. So I guess you will also introduce yourself afterwards. But a few words on Turn2X. It's a Munich-based clean tech company, raised 25 million plus in money so far. And it produces renewable natural gas by combining green hydrogen with biogenic CO2. Have last year inaugurated also their first commercial plant in Spain, which is fully backed these days already by long-term offtake contracts. And last but not least, they're collaborating and working together with Siemens. I guess Siemens doesn't need that much of introduction. Very well-known global player in technology these days, still a very well-known German company. But Dominic and Philip, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, starting here. Yes, my name is Dominic. I'm the CTO of Turn2X and one of the founders. And at Turn2X, we make green hydrogen transportable. We produce e-methane, RNG, and bring green molecules to customers all around Europe. When we look at Europe's energy system faces wasted electrons, grid bottlenecks, I think this is every day in the news actually looking all these bottlenecks and how to switch from electrons to molecules, and also the import dependency we have. And for that we have the solution. Let's also move some electrons which are already produced into molecules. And volatility, so wasted electrons, gas imports, it's also another big topic. LNG, where we're buying it from. These people are our friends or not in the future, so let's get more resilience into that in Europe. And for that, let's go for a molecule. And the existing infrastructure, what we have, is the most valuable asset to store energy at the moment. It's the natural gas grid all over Europe. Yeah, that's the largest battery we have. We have 1,200 terawatt hours of storage there, close around, including transport capacities. And this gives us today already the opportunity to deliver green and also certified molecules to customers producing there in Spain, for example, where we have low levelized cost for production, and deliver it to energy intensive industries. Looking a little bit to our products and coming to that, also to get to the Siemens partnership, our scalable technology, it's a 9 megawatt methanation technology. We have on the one side, we call it a core. It's only the methanation. We included a 9 megawatt electrolyzer unit there as well. So it's a module. It's really standardized. That's the product we are actually in discussions and also developing ourselves with project development. The team in Spain, we are already there in several permitting processes to bring our own projects on the market, on the ground, and also in several processes with customers to develop their further projects. And to do such a thing, it's really important as a startup, beginning from scratch, so that we have a digital way of doing our engineering. So don't do the drawings by hand, really everything integrated. And that was also the time when we were looking for a strong partner. And during my time at KIT, we worked already close in Karlsruhe with Siemens, so we know the guys very well. And then with their own company, we said, okay, let's go for that. And I would say hand over to Philip. Then you can go through that.
Yes, thank you, Dominic. Yeah, the interesting thing when we look at what we are in Siemens are doing and what we were able to contribute to Turn2X is that we have a very holistic view on the hydrogen projects and the hydrogen plants. Why? Because we think that kind of integration is very, very important. We are focusing on what we call the digital hydrogen plant, which consists of 3 pillars. The digital twin of the plant, secondly, of our so-called technology stack, where we have a predefined solution for hydrogen, as the green hydrogen plants mainly consist of very similar components. And third, in the operational phase of the so-called hydrogen performance suite, where we are trying to bring all the data together from the weather forecast, so to say, to the optimization task. So where we also ask ourselves, well, what do you need of data? What you may also need later to use for admin. And Flo already said very well, you can't do all this manually. Yeah? So the question is, how can you really integrate data? So, well, when you look at the engineering process, so we come with the process design, with simulation, with GPROMs. Then we come through the whole plant engineering, where we have the P&IDs, the electrical part, then the automation part. You know, Dominic is just clicking forward, so you have an impression of how the different tools look like, how that tool chain looks. Then up to automation with PCS7 or Simatic PCS Neo, so that you have a continuous flow of information in engineering, but later then also in operation. So because then also in operation, for example, that you have a very complex optimization task in front, because we see in design, in engineering, and operation, cutting costs in green hydrogen is a very complex thing, because there's not one lever or 2 levers or 3 levers. There are very many levers that you have to optimize, and you must be careful if you optimize one lever that you do not get worse in another lever. So having all that integration, having all the data together with the digital twin is for us key. And this is why it was very nice to have that cooperation with you, with Turn2X, knowing our technologies, being open for that, and really empowering the whole chain, so to say, and using also our templates and our predefined solutions. Simulation, and then you see here also a picture from the so-called hydrogen performance suite on the bottom, where you then have, as I already said, from the weather forecast up to simulation. For example, you can bring the weather forecast in. You see the next 2 days, how much energy you will get out of solar, out of wind, what is the prediction for the grid tariffs. So then you can make an optimization button, and it optimizes the plant operation for the next days for you. But you also have the detail view, for example, on the electrolyzers, and can see there, for example, degradation. You can put degradation models into it, because the question if you raise up your electrolyzers or not is also interesting to see, okay, what does that do with degradation, for example. So to have really the holistic picture from engineering to operation of the plant.
Yeah, thank you, Philip. Yeah, for us, as said, it's really important, and also we go with the whole workflow really to have the GPROMs as an asset model to understand also the dynamic behavior of the asset already in the engineering process to see what's coming up later, and then going within Comus, what we are using for the plant engineering, the PCS7 then for the automation, and yeah, operating an asset. It's really important to have the software layer on top, because this makes really the difference if you can follow your PPA and PV profiles, spin profiles you're getting in there, or you need to ramp up and down slowly. And yeah, that's something what also is something we are well advanced at the moment and learn every day with the asset life. And coming also to the next slide. So it's not only the PowerPoint, we have also the first asset life in Spain, and we inject there, and we are also RFNBO certified, and not the first one, but with a strong partner for the certification, and proven operational experience. So yeah, to run this really dynamic, and yeah, that's it from our side. Happy to start in the discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for presenting your projects and your cooperation and partnerships. And I always think like it really proves that startups are not like the decorating fancy part of the hydrogen economy, but very deep into the matter and very experienced and very skilled in that. If you may, for a couple of minutes, because Flora has to leave, I have some questions for you, and would like to start with Flora. You really explained very well how crucial it is to integrate certification right from the beginning in a project, and how necessary and important it is. But it's not only crucial, but it's still critical, because you're dealing with a lot of sensitive data, you're dealing with the property of the companies. Does it make a difference for a newcomer company, not to say a startup, but for a company that is not as long around as as whatever kind of competitors? We're not there, but anyway. So how do the companies trust you? What's necessary to do in order to make sure that you're a reliable partner, a trustworthy partner?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because it's very hard to be the small guy in the energy sector. I was previously at Engie, at E.ON. I come from the big guys, and I know how this, silent arrogance is there also, and like, oh, okay, if you do a good job, we'll buy you up. And it's hard to be trusted. It's hard to have an eye-to-eye collaboration with the large industrial incumbents. So how do you create trust from day one? I think the first thing is just being so good at what you do, and being extremely deep in the details. It's no secret. In the beginning, when a large firm signs something with a startup, they don't buy the disruption. They don't care about the disruption. They want value for a problem that they have, right? So they will start working with you if they trust that you will do a better job than would actually do themselves. So yeah, be very strong at what you do and become better than everyone else, and like nerd very, very hard about your topic until you're pretty confident that you're better than others. Because in the beginning, a corporate and your customers, they don't buy a product. They know very well that you don't have it all figured out yet. And especially in our case, we started being on the market before the RFNBO rules were accepted and voted, right? So we had to create this trust beforehand. They don't buy a product directly, they buy a team. And they buy how far they will go if they work with you. So nerd a lot about your topic and be excellent at it. And second, I would say also be careful how you market yourself. And we had a tough discussion yesterday, Uwe, you and I, but like the startup thing doesn't really help, right? So when you're put on a stage and in a corner where it says innovation, it's written like nice to have. And then you need to work your way out of that and saying, no, we really create value. So yeah, I think also how you market yourself as, you have a problem, we have a solution, we know how to take you there is quite important. And maybe a third thing, you can work your way through trust as well with some actions. Very early on, we worked on our own certification. We are ISO 27001 certified, which is the gold standard for data and IT security, and we take this very seriously from the start. So that's again something you can do where you go find the help of others in creating or like validating the quality of what you're building. In our case, there's a last thing, which is that it's such a complex ecosystem that we also worked from the start very close with the schemes, with the certification bodies. Today, all the leading certification bodies are working on our platform, right? So the more you get traction with the incumbents, the more also people understand that you are inevitable and you're, not, going to do a 10th MVP on a topic which, building something that won't scale. So yeah, that would be my bunch of answers.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And we've learned this, as I said before, we started as a startup hub and then found out it's more an ecosystem that we need to build because it's all about bringing in fresh ideas, innovative ideas, but also to get partners on board who are doing things and being probably like Siemens a little bit longer around that many startups. Maybe a second question, Flor, and also to both of you, how did you find each other? I mean, it's not going to a trade fair, making some contacts, or how does it work? Because it seems like a perfect fit, and I'd like to know, how did you find each other?
Okay.
It's not a dating show, just get me wrong, but I'm curious.
I met with Cyril, so your CEO, at a very small fair in Toulon, a hydrogen fair in Toulon in the south of France, where I actually come from. And he was just very genuinely open. And this triggered a discussion. And then, but you were the champion. You were the one who said, okay, you guys are onto something.
And I have to correct you, we met before in Hamburg. And I introduced, at that point, can I say
True.
The old name?
Yeah.
Point 12. When you were still called Point 12. We met in Hamburg, I introduced it internally, but the pain of certification was not yet there. This was, I don't know, 2 years ago maybe. So within our organization, to be transparent, we didn't have the pain of certification and going through the process, so people were not maybe fully aware of what certification entails. So at that point, we didn't really have resonance. And then Cyril, a few months down the road, Cyril, our CEO, met Flor again. And then he came to me and said, I met this really amazing software company that makes certification so easy. And then, yeah, at that point, I think we reconnected. And then we bought the plant in Germany and then realized, okay, we need to start certification right away because that's the value driver, as you already outlined. And I think that's when the whole process sort of started picking up speed.
And handing the same question over to you, how far does your relationship go into the past?
I would say it goes back to KIT times. There's also a strong partnership between Siemens and then KIT already, so using components, some software, but really starting into such a partnership was when we started with the engineering, developing the product. We said, okay, we want to have all integrated workflow there, and also coming to process automation and also thinking about on a software layer on top, and not only I need a process automation and that's it. And yeah, then we reached out, challenged some of the colleagues, and then we ended up in a partnership, I would say.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it was exactly the right timing, right? It was around about 2 years ago, yeah, that we started really in detail on these things and brought our engineering team together. Our engineering team was just working on or just about to finalize the technology stack and putting some of these things. So that has really been the perfect timing that you came with your know-how, with your with the know-how that you have from KIT, with your concrete project. So that was perfect for us to bring our teams together, to use that, to implement it, and to work together on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really sounds great. So obviously it's an opportunity, or you need an opportunity to meet. So Flor, you're part of H2Hub's ecosystem for quite a long time. Do you think there's an importance in these kind of ecosystems? Does it make it easier for you to be recognized, to be seen, to meet the right people?
Honestly, when you're a small company in this big guys sector, any visibility helps. Mm-hmm. So it definitely helped to also, put us on stage and say, okay, first, let's pitch the problem, let's pitch the solution. So visibility always helps. I think what helped as well, you have this mentoring scheme where we were also put in touch with various corporates. I think just helped. I mean, we had our own network from previous work, but just helps to propel and have just as many discussions as you can in the beginning to validate the pain and understand, like, will people really want to outsource this? Will people trust a small company to do this for them? What would it take for them to trust you? So I think you were a good catalyst for like more visibility and more meaningful relationships to the right corporates. Mm.
Yeah, thank you for this feedback. It is really important for H2Hub to do support of startups and support of the ecosystem by introducing people to each other that might have something in common. So the mentoring system, the expert system in our programs is really crucial, because you all know the value chain is really long, and for your special part of the value chain you need the really fitting partners and not anyone who has an opinion on hydrogen, but who is really deep into the matter. What's astonishing, maybe a last question to the four of you, we set this session up by bringing startups with corporates together. And I hope you agree, when you listen to the four companies, it's not always clear who is learning and who is giving and who is taking. So maybe Philip, starting with you, a big shot like Siemens, what are we getting out of these partnerships? Is it just a customer, or is it more?
Yeah, you know that we are a big company in Siemens, but we also have some very dynamic, also small teams working on very innovative solutions, and we found that there are really the same spirits between Dominic's teams and our team, and so I think it was really a win-win situation, because we were starting something new. We started new activities, new technological activities. You did, and so that was absolutely beneficial, equally beneficial for both. Yeah, so we could learn as much from Dominic and his team as the other way around, potentially, I guess, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. And Tobias, what about you? Are you also learning something from this in this partnership?
Well, first of all, they're reducing all of the pain of certification for us. So I think that's the biggest one for us. It's really the practical implementation that we can get rid of, because luckily Flor and her team have considered that element much before. And turned that into hard code so that we don't have to do all the, let's say, manual work. So that's been I think the biggest driver and the biggest relief for us.
Okay. So Thank you very much for these great presentations, for your time on this stage here in Brussels. I spare us the round, what's your demands to politics in Brussels, and because we have a lot of that. So thank you very much for this session. I hope we are in time for your lunch break. But last but not least, I would invite you either to talk to the panelists and to us at our information booth right next to the buffet. And maybe the next slide, Christoph, if you're interested in what we are doing, want to learn about the startups we are working with, as I said, it's more than 150 startups we know, not only by name, but by technology. We are working on market intelligence reports on very different parts of the hydrogen ecosystem, and offering, last but not least, the greatest conference on hydrogen innovation in Europe next year again in Essen. It's Hydroverse Convention, and I'd like to invite all of you to learn more about what we are doing, to meet more startups and see the potential that partnerships between young and very ambitious companies and established partners have in the hydrogen economy. So thanks a lot for your time, for your interest. Thanks a lot for participating in this discussion, and to my colleague Christoph also, thanks a lot, and have a nice lunch break and see you later.
Thank you.